So welcome, beloved hearts. This is Anrita Melchizedek, and I'd like to welcome you to this energy update for the month of November 2022. And we're certainly moving through this month quite rapidly. In fact, we're almost in December, and then we're on to the new year, and we're really starting to feel and experience those light codes activating for 2023, which is so much about community, unity, coming together more, deepening into our service work, taking our service work out, coming together with like-minded souls, soul brothers, soul sisters, and simply being of greater levels of service, as we always are. Just working a lot more from our heart, streaming our heart's joy, and really finding that support that perhaps we still find that we don't have sometimes, or of course just that frustration of dealing with a lot of unawake people, if we can put it mildly like that, where there's a lot of 3D consciousness still at play and 4D consciousness. We talk about 3D when we're really deeply unconscious, and we talk about 4D essentially when we are waking up and experiencing those still a play of those heaven and hell archetypes. So a lot of deep clearing of the fields of density, and of course a lot of that within us, the purification, detoxification, and it's an ongoing process as we start to embody our soul light. And then of course we are deepening into the loving heart. The heart is opening, that 0 point, that's the soul embodiment, the photonic light, the feminine energy. And then from there we move into the divine masculine, which is more 6th, 7th dimensional. And I have mentioned this a few times. This is really very much that galactic power, frequency, and energy that comes through. And so we move then from the star seed to the soul seed, and then to the soul being, star being, and source light, if we could really, although everything occurs simultaneously, so it's very difficult to say if we move from a linear perspective, how we expand and become that beautiful light. And what is occurring now for us, though, is that we are deepening into that Christ light, into that crystalline consciousness. And so this whole month has been very much about the gold energy frequencies. It's been also the pink is coming through, the feminine energy, because crystalline Christ light is actually also our feminine energy, at least initially. And so it's quite interesting because I've been working a lot with just these beautiful Andaras. Everything that's coming up for me has just been a very gold frequency. And so it's just quite beautiful to be working with all these lovely golden frequencies and energies. We see a few more here. Just some beautiful things coming through there. And just a few more. There's a lovely South African one. Also beautiful Andara energy. And I've been working also with some of the beautiful pinks. And so we're doing this dance because all the time what we do is that we move up and down the lower chakras where we are clearing whatever those false beliefs, those judgments of us, we keep shedding identities. And so this is what we've got at this time, is that we are just shedding of the negative ego aspects, those false beliefs, those judgments. And that is really like a dance up and down the lower chakras, simultaneous to shifting dimensionally, deepening into being our Christed light, threefold flame activating from within the loving heart, the pineal gland activating quite a lot too at this time, according to our levels of consciousness, and so much more. So we're going to unpack a little bit of that together. And before I do that, I want to just take us into just a little bit of a nice energizing and breathing and centering meditation, so we can start from that point. And I think I might move into this really beautiful invocation that's come through the theme of what we've been doing this month, which is really all about the Christed light and the codes of divinity. And the codes of divinity are essentially just our purity and innocence. That is what we're becoming, but we're becoming more and more the higher selves. So we don't just have one higher self, we have a lot of different higher selves that we're embodying. So all those aspects in the beginning that are outside of ourselves, all our galactic aspects, our angelic aspects, Atlantean, Lemurian, ancient Egyptian, and other timelines of self-mastery that we are working with initially as aspects of ourselves that have that consciousness that we are still awakening to or shifting into as we raise our vibration and frequency, we're now becoming. And as we become that, in some way, it's less about looking outside of ourselves for that information. We're just coming in because it's all there. And we are activating it almost like in pockets of information. It's like a building block. We're building and creating as the subatomic particles are spinning in this increased light frequency, and we're clearing the density. And it's really only when we've been through each stage, if we can even say that from a linear perspective, that we have a sense of actually what that was all about. And then we move into the next level and we go through that dimensional gateway. And then only in hindsight, or only when we can see it when we come out the other side, do we have a better understanding of what it was that we went through. And that's really how we experience New Earth, because New Earth is a frequency, but it's also here physically. But it requires for us to not only shift our consciousness and hold our consciousness at those dimensional fields that match that consciousness, but also the recognition that we are the co-creators, and also that we are not only here to extend and expand that light from within, but also to shift the consciousness of all, and to really, for ourselves, just become truly what we are, which is source light. And this is then, we are drawing our future selves. We are drawing all these aspects of ourselves that have experienced whatever we would like to call it, enlightenment, self-mastery, and those aspects are embodying in photonic light. Photonic light is soul light. Then that frequency and energy is what lifts our consciousness, but also takes us into physical ascension. And there's different stages in which that light body comes on for us. So for a very long time, as the consciousness expands, the physical body is still catching up because we've got a lot of that density within. And so the body itself feels rather disjointed or uncoordinated or clumsy. And there's a lot that we can't do because we're moving from physical strength to light. And so in 3D, 4D, our body has physical strength. So we could do a lot of sort of physical exercises, body movements, and have the muscle strength. But 5D and beyond, what we have is light. And light doesn't have strength. It has frequency, which is very different. So we do things very differently. So there's a point when we slow down and everything becomes for a while upside down, where we have to slow down, where that photonic light that is expanding the heart and simultaneous to that activating the pineal gland is actually slowing us down. It's the feminine energy, but it's also the Christed energy, because we're birthing the innocence of the soul from within. And the innocence of the soul is that beautiful purity, that divinity of ourselves that recognizes that we are love. In fact, for me, this whole last week has been quite interesting, because I always say, I love you. I extend these love yous and I say it to myself sometimes, but this whole last week I've been very aware and conscious that I'm saying, I love you, Anrita, I love you, just regularly. And I think in some way it's just because of that source light that's nurturing, loving, is also very feminine energy. It's a very nurturing energy, and it's one in which we appreciate ourselves. And while this is occurring, while we are amplifying the light frequency, of course, as we know, we're also clearing a lot of that density. And so it's what's coming up on a planetary level and what's coming up for us individually, because we all have our own false beliefs and judgments that we're clearing. What's coming up on one level for all of us through the unconsciousness of humanity, what we're clearing is a lot about unworthiness, and also lesser than and better than consciousness, competition, comparative measures. So this may be something that's coming up for you too in terms of these false beliefs. And also, as we're spiraling up and down those lower chakras, we're clearing then a lot of lack of abundance. If you've had lack of abundance, whether it's around money, whether it's around other aspects of your life, feeling again that lack of is also going into unworthiness, not feeling good enough. But the other side for many people, it sits on that frequency of money. And money, as we know, is just energy, but from a fifth and sixth dimensional level of consciousness, we utilize the energy of money very differently, because how we draw it to us and magnetize it to us is a very, very different, in that we always look at what is highest aligned. And it's our universe that tells us what to spend the money on. And for a large percentage of that time, it's really not necessarily spending on randomly. It's really just focusing on perhaps what we're needing in each given moment, and having just enough for that, and being able to share what may be in excess for a while, or coming down to nothing. I know for me that there certainly were times where humility was really key, as well as trust and surrender, where they perceive from a physical or financial perspective, rather, to that there was very little. But of course, there wasn't really very little. There was always enough. And when there was more, it was my universe set to give, to share, to give it out and share it with others. And I think that's really a beautiful thing of how we step up and we share in our own ways. And for me, what I know from that time of that great level of trust and surrender, and really just having enough to pay the rent at the end of the month, and the electricity, the water, something to eat, whatever it may be. And anything that was beyond that was to share it with others, to take that and, give the $5, the $10, the $20 to those that actually had less. And here where we stay in South Africa, there's certainly a lot of people in need, as of course there are all over the world. So, we have a lot of people, when you drive through the traffic lights and you're stopping, and there's people always on the side of the road, and often they have their little kids with them. And that was also one of the reasons I set up the nonprofit foundation. And we provide sandwiches and just help where we can. But in my personal capacity too, it's like just stepping up and walking into a shop and sort of seeing who's outside and who's around and who might need some assistance, and really just buying them, something that they can eat, and looking after those that really have less than what we do. And so back to how we utilize the energy of money, is it's always what is highest aligned with our universe, and we listen to the universe, in our universe telling us what we should spend our money on. And of course, it's always about everything that expands the service of humanity. So that's a huge part of it. And the other part to that is really recognizing that personally we need very little. So we may have moved through different stages of our lives. And even for me, after that stage initially of not having anything, and then gathering again, if I could say, new levels of financial well-being, not only was there sharing, but then there was a greater level of abundance to say, okay, if, you can treat yourself if you want. It wasn't a lack of not having or an inability to get something if you really wanted it. And we become obsessed too with different things. I know for me that the Andaras, I have a lot of Andaras. I love Andaras, and not only do I spend a lot of time with them and share them with others and sell them, but I also give them away. So it's just really recognizing that money is the energy, but it comes down to what are those false beliefs maybe that you have beyond it, or how does it show up in your life, or what is that level of trust and surrender into it, or were you brought up in a house that there wasn't very much and you were always very concerned about it? Because when I look at my ancestry, that I see that too, that for me, that my parents and my grandparents, and they came from a lot of poverty consciousness where they were, and money was always tight, so you always ended up buying things if it was on the sale, or buying the cheapest things, and thinking it was such a bargain. And of course, at the end, all those very cheap things are the things that break and don't last long. And you spend a lot more money on the other side. So it was recognizing, kind of that belief was, in my case, that there isn't enough, or I don't have enough, or even though we need to always buy what's cheapest, and we've got a family to look after, and if we're not buying that cheapest, we won't have the money for something else that we might need. So it was really clearing a lot of that, and then that was going through the base chakra and into the buttocks. So some of you may have experienced, because when we're clearing, this is deep within the body. We're going into the muscles, we're going into the tissue, we're going into the bones, and it can also be very, very uncomfortable depending on what is being cleared for us. And so we move the body in different ways, whether you're doing the massage, or whether you're using a massage stick, or whether you're using the yoga balls, or even a massage machine, something that's getting into those areas of the body that is needing to be cleared for you. So this is in part what we've been experiencing in the last month or so, because we've been moving through this eclipse energy, and those eclipses are always ego deaths. They're always harbingers of change. So we're experiencing many, many different things that occur in order for this Christed light and this threefold flame that's continuously expanding from the loving heart to allow for more of the crystalline consciousness to activate, which is the diamond light, which is the pink light now. It's a more softer, gentle, feminine energy. But this has been it was a very red, orange energy coming through initially at the beginning of this month, because we were moving through a lot of those lower clearings through the lower chakras. And then also with that was coming up a lot of around sexual relationships. So it was also, we use our sexual energy very differently in New Earth. We don't often need partners, and in fact, often with New Earthers, you'll find, at least for some time, many of them will be not on their own, but may choose to not be in a relationship, because that accelerates the work that we're doing on the inner planes and on the outer planes. And we utilize the sexual energy mostly just for creativity. That's essentially what that sexual energy is utilized for. And simultaneously, of course, what we're doing is that we're clearing on the planetary level, and possibly even within ourselves, where we may have issues between men and women, dynamics, old stuff. Even if we don't have that, where we've had it in the past, what's happening is it's coming up to clear. So we're remembering old relationships, or things that happened, or in that dynamic of relationships, what was distorted in it, because that's what's been coming up to clear. And then further to that, on a planetary level, what's being cleared, or what was being clearing and still is clearing for this month, is very much that abuse and misuse of sexual energy. And that also was coming through from a religious perspective. So the distortions in religion that had brought up also a lot of that. It was, I noticed what's going on, or what's being cleared on a planetary level, based on, sometimes just I'm sitting on YouTube from my channel, and then I'm just drawn to particular things. And this one was, I was watching, it was something about the Roman Catholic Church again. So it wasn't just the pedophile of the priests with the young choir boys, but it was also the story of many of the nuns. So many of those nuns were also sexually abused. And so for me, while it's in a heart of compassion watching this, it's also the recognition of, okay, this has been cleared on a planetary level. It's coming up for people to be able to step up, take responsibility to stop this happening. And we do this by sharing this information. But also what happens is then it dissolves those codes, or we expand beyond that from within us if we hold any level of sexual abuse. So everything that's coming up, particularly in the last couple of years, as we've seen, is really related to abuse and misuse of power. And a lot of that, of course, is a sexual frequency. And so we are clearing that collectively. And a large part of that is also clearing what many of us have experienced in our own lives of any areas of abuse, misuse of power, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, whatever it may be, victim, persecutor consciousness. It's all coming up simultaneous within the unconsciousness, but also for us to hold it, to expand beyond it. And then we move into the solar plexus. So that's also been coming up a lot. The solar plexus is relationships, partnerships, how we communicate, how we step up, how we share our light with others from that level of respect, from that level of clear communication, from that level of open-heartedness, particularly when others are disrespectful, or they don't see us, or they don't acknowledge, perhaps, with gratitude, things that are being done, because we do things that humans don't do. We step up and we take responsibility and we commit it, and we show up and we share. And I know in for me personally, my greatest reflectors are my kids that are teenagers now, teenage boys. They're 13 and 15. And we've had a journey together, myself and my kids. And they're going through all that, moving into wherever it is in their, young teenage lives, where, they find themselves being a little bit more cheeky, and they've got all that testosterone flowing through them, and the hormones are shifting and changing, and sometimes they're abrupt, and sometimes they're disrespectful, and sometimes I find myself just reaching a point where I, kind of like want to get angry, and then I observe that, because all of this is a reactivity, observing that, witnessing presence of the beloved I am that I am, to be able to say, okay, now this is the gift, this is the blessing, where that open heart of compassion is just saying, let's not speak like that. I don't like to hear that. And remember the gratitude, and this is what we say. And if you can't say that, rather don't say anything. And I think in some ways it's probably easier said than actually done for them, that you can say it and say it and say it, but they will get there at some point. And so for me, it's really this dance of seeing how we connect with others, how we observe others, how we can love others, particularly those that we are unfamiliar with or we don't know so much. And so also what's been clearing is very much that lesser than and better than consciousness of how we see others, apart from what's been going on from a religious perspective, where we kind of see the false beliefs and all the different religions, that have created that separation for us between where it's the Christian, the Jewish, the Muslim, the Hindu, whatever it may be, to just recognize that, it was all just put in place to separate us, that my God is better than yours. And, if you're not a Christian, you're not going to heaven, and, you're going to hell. And, the Muslim belief of whatever it is, that I think they're going to marry 7 virgins in heaven, or whatever it may be. It's really unimportant, because it's all a false belief, judgment of others, and a false belief too. It's just observing how silly all these beliefs really are, because this is so much of shedding the identity, becoming nothing before we become everything, is releasing the identity that we have to particular roles, to particular identities that we are, that we this. Meantime, we none of it really. If we had to take it away, all of it, who would we be? We would just be a beautiful, loving soul. And from that point, then we can step up and we can say, okay, but I choose to take on these roles. And how well can I do them now? Because I observe, I'm not coming from the patterns of playing out. I don't need in my reality someone that I play this out with, that has to be a reflector for me, that I have to do this ego dance with, that does the shedding, that does the clearing, that allows me to expand beyond, because I know that at the end of the day, we can all just be loving, we can all step up, be respectful, be kind, be caring and sharing. And that's essentially what we are doing here. And so apart from this religious belief, what's also been clearing is the lesser than and better than consciousness. All of this is coming up on different levels through the unconsciousness of humanity, but it's also clearing from within. as we're activating these light codes. And these light codes I'm going to jump into right now. So 111 and 222. These are very much the codes of divinity and the codes of Christ consciousness or crystalline consciousness. We talk about more because a lot of people seem to have also still with those religious beliefs. We don't talk so much about Christ. We talk more about crystalline, but crystalline is Christ. That lesser than and better than consciousness coming up as we recognize the divinity within all and everyone. Simply, it's the different levels of cosmic consciousness that we have on one level. And beyond that, too, is also the recognition that regardless of our color is a very big one. It's like we just all beautiful souls. So what's coming up to be clear here is also, I would say, the perceived difference between black, white, colored, maybe Native American or whatever it may be, that just deepening into coming together, deepening into recognizing that, again, it goes back to abuse and misuse of power that's been cleared, where, for example, a lot of, whether it was all the settlers that came from Europe to Africa, for example, and, just came on the lands, and that wasn't just every country with indigenous people. It doesn't really matter. It was in Africa, it was in America, Canada, it was in Australia, New Zealand. We came, we conquered, and I talk about we because we've all been whatever we've been, but right now, it's still clearing that level of abuse from all of us that have experienced it on being both the victim and being both the persecutor. So there's much that's coming up. And so while all of this has been cleared from our own psyche to release separation, it's really the key focus here is unity consciousness. And so all of this is coming up in a huge ways because we're deepening into unity consciousness. And what is unity consciousness? It's Christ consciousness. It's crystalline consciousness. It's the codes of divinity. And that then is coming through the 111 and 222. And the 111 codes, or at least we talk about that usually as the 1111 as the codes of divinity, but it's all the sequences of that, of the 11. 11 is primarily, as we know, the master numbers. And that first master number of 11, there's different elements to it. It's very much a feminine energy. We talk about it as the energy of love. It's also the 11th ray. We could talk about it from that perspective of illumined truth and divine love. So it's lifting us also into deeper levels of truth and sovereignty. And that's where we are right now. We've just experienced this new moon energy, which is again about new beginnings, but it's a softness now. There's a softness to it, but you may also find yourself needing more downtime, or the body's just feeling very sleepy because we're activating so much of the crystalline, the Christ, the golden frequency and energy. And it's very much this hue of blending into these beautiful pink, golden light frequencies from within. And this is what we're experiencing and feeling right now. And the violet flame is always transmuting through the frequency of this beautiful sacred earth. So we're feeling that deepening connection into the earth, into Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is, of course, always our first connection that we have with the earth. And it's a very sacred connection that we have into feeling the pulse, the one pulse of all that is. And from that space and place, the one heart, we follow the rhythm and guidance of our soul. We wake up and we flow with what that day may be from one moment to the next, because the guidance comes through from the soul of what we should do. And it's very different to living a 3D, 4D reality where you may have a job where you're waking up and getting up and you go to work, for example, and you're working your 8 hours, because the way the soul works, apart from there's downtime that we need and we sleep and we need to go and sleep or close our eyes, we're spinning. There's a lot going on. The macabre fields is activating. And, when that is happening, it's like kind of feels like it feels like free fall. It feels like, kind of like almost like you're falling. That's probably the best way that I can describe it. For me, I find like feel a little bit dizzy with it. That I need to go and lie down a bit. And also the pineal is activating a lot, pineal gland activations. And when the pineal gland is overactivating, as I call it, there's a lot of head pressure and a lot of nausea. You feel nauseous, and also the pineal secretions come through and they connect into the palate of the top palate of the mouth. And what happens is it's like different secretions, but that also can become a little bit inflamed and expanded. And so when we're experiencing that, what is occurring is that we are feeling the particular taste that the body's wanting. And I know for me, when I'm moving into a lot of pineal gland activations, is often my body is wanting carbohydrates, it's wanting salty chips, it's wanting sort of very pasta starchy type foods for a while, for a day or two. And then other times it's just wanting sweets, as wanting the dark chocolate or the sugars. So it's really honoring, because mostly our diets are really quite good for the most part. We're eating well, and we're trying to eat organic where we can, and also working on different levels. I find for me, just to express again the importance of taking those vitamins that are needed for the body as you're building the different levels of light body. And some of the very common ones that we use, at least initially, is ginger. I have a whole series of different glass bottles, glass jars that I have filled with my vitamin powders, but I have a mix that I take primarily. And the common mix that I utilize or work with is the ginger and turmeric with black pepper, because that really just helps with the inflammation. The same with the MSM, that's also very useful. The MSM also works with a lot with the inflammation, pain, and we're going into the bones, and magnesium. So that seems to be the primary sort of combination of powders that I take. But if there's been a lot going on in different levels energetically, I may add a little bit of Schizandra and then adaptogen, and that's very useful to work with in order to just kind of calm everything down a little bit. And of course, we all have our tools, what we do, whether we want to just close our eyes and breathe, or move into listening to different invocations or meditations. But being out in nature is probably the biggest one for all of us, where we are. For me, I walk on my beach, and it's summer here also, which is lovely, but even in winter, walking barefoot on the earth, because that's where we feel that connection, walking barefoot in our houses. Because the soles that are rubber on shoes, what happens is it's like an insulation that blocks us from the energy of the earth. So we don't connect. Even when we're walking out in nature, we're feeling and connecting into the plasma light frequencies. And often what you will find, I find, is that the eyes suddenly are going like this, because they are receiving the light codes from the plasma light. But walking in water where you can, or being around water, is also really great. And I just walk on the shore of the beach up and down, and just think about my day, or rather feel about the day. We don't even think, actually. We don't really have an opinion. We just feel that day. We feel into the soul expressing and what the next step may be. And then, as I was expressing, it's very difficult to have sort of an 8-hour day, because for me, my day will come back, and I've already taken my kids off to school, let's say, and coming back and having a morning smoothie or a juice or a shower, a small meditation or stretching, and then the gardens to do some writing or emails. But then I might need to go into the garden and I hang out with the Andaras and take some photos and spend some time with them. And, then it's like making a nice salad. And then it's maybe some writings or consultations. I can't say what everyone's day is, but I'm saying for me that it's not a solid stretch for the most part, although sometimes it is. And when it is, we work multidimensionally, which means we can do the work probably of about 3 people. What would take someone like a day, we can do in about 2 or 3 or 4 hours. We just do the writings or recordings or YouTube videos or whatever it may be, get it together very quickly because we work from a multidimensional perspective very fast, but it's actually very slow too, if that makes sense. So you got to find your own way. I mean, it's really a flow. That's what we talk about, is this organic flow. So what's occurring now is we're deepening into this organic flow. So we've got these codes, the 111 and the 222 codes. So the 111, as I was saying, is very much, they're all connected. The 111 codes, the codes of divinity, the codes of love, the codes of self-mastery start to move through the 222 codes. So you might be seeing 2222 or 2202, or you might be seeing 1111 or 1101. It doesn't really matter. All of these light codes are activating from within, and the 222 codes are also very much connected to the priesthood training, the remembrance of the timelines of self-mastery, merging into that timeline of ancient Egypt, Atlantis, Lemuria. And that is really what is also being experienced at this moment in time, is a lot of those timelines of self-mastery. So it's really recognizing that all is unfolding as it's meant to be, but we can experience greater levels of it when we flow with our universe, where we find that connection into our universe by honoring the flow and the rhythm and the balance. And it's only when we're not doing that, where we can't find that time, that we ourselves start to experience that reactivity, where we become more, anger anyway is also just compromise, isn't it? So it's like we're not finding, as we call it from a human perspective, the time to do this or the time to do that. But from a multidimensional perspective, everything is just slowed down, and we observe, because not only do we observe, but we have, when I'm doing that morning walk, I'm mapping multidimensionally. What that means is that I'm looking at the highest outcome through all different timelines. If I imagine myself stepping into this timeline and we feel it, everything is felt. It's not thought or let me think about it. It's like I feel what I need to do and I observe as the witnessing presence. And that's why for a while we have the two voices, or for many of us for quite a while, until it becomes the one voice. So we're feeling what we need to do, and then we look at the timelines. We map. If I went through this timeline and did this and this and this, what would be the outcome? If I went through this timeline and did this and this and this, what would be the outcome? So we're mapping all the time multidimensionally to find that highest experience, to find that highest outcome, to find that which is most soul aligned. So everything that we do then comes from that point of soul alignment, of what is the highest outcome. And when we're in the place and space of what is the highest outcome, then we're connecting with those that have not only a similar resonance for the most part, but also those souls that have that alignment to, that are ready to step up, that are committed, that show up in each and every single now moment. And that's what we're doing. So we're mapping and we're following the guidance and rhythm of the soul. And every day will be slightly different. And sometimes it's hard work. It's hard work to show up when maybe you don't feel so well. It's hard work to just be committed and to do. And you can get very frustrated because, others aren't doing. And sometimes it can also be unrewarding, because you've got to move beyond all of that. It's like you are doing your service work and your joy. And if you come from doing your service work and doing your joy as this beautiful soul and light of God you are, there's nothing more beyond that we need to do, because those that are support teams are going to step up. Those that we can support, we're going to find too. As this reunion of hearts, as soul brothers, soul sisters, soul mates, all of it is coming together. And 2023 is going to be that year where we step up a lot more in our service work as the Light Tribe. So it's honoring the flow and rhythm, that everything has its perfect now moment, but also honoring the flow and rhythm where we're listening to our universe, for our universe expressing how each day will unfold. and it will become different. It has its own different rhythms and pulses, and that connection comes from that energy to the earth, and that connection comes from that energy to Gaia, and also through the crystalline grid, that connection that we have as the I am avatar race, or what I call the beloved I am presence, the collective light of humanity. We are drawing from that, which is essentially the quantum field. It's the quantum consciousness. So there's various levels in which we are expressing and sharing and connecting. And it just really is at what frequency we are that we will feel that call or be divinely guided to step up and step out in different ways. That's very much related to our own frequency and our own energy. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this meditation with us, or this invocation. I'm going to share with you just something beautiful that I put together previously, and I think it will just be a very nice one to end here today. And this one is going to be called Activation of the Inner Christ. So if I was expressing so much of this beautiful golden light and how it's all shining through the light codes activating from within, and it's just really a beautiful one that is being experienced for all of us at this time. So invite you to just get yourselves comfortably relaxed and to just take a few deep breaths into the body, because everything, of course, is related to that connection that we have with ourselves and the connection that we have with the earth, which we find in the pulse of the breath, because the breath is what assists us in deepening into that conscious awareness, into that consciousness of our divinity, of our light. And so we take a few deep breaths into the body, just breathing in love, breathing out love. I call upon the overlighting of Mother, Father, God, and all the illumined beings of light from on high that I personally acknowledge. As I merge now with my beloved I am presence, the highest light I am within the cosmic heart of all creation. And as I merge now with the beloved I am presence of every man, woman, and child upon the sacred earth, choosing the organic timelines of new earth, as together we stand as the light of God and flames of divinity upon the sacred earth. Breathing deep into the body now, breathing in love, breathing out love. We visualize this beautiful golden sun ignite within our loving hearts. As we breathe in, visualizing this point of light, this golden sun sphere, we now hold the breath as long as we can. And as we breathe out, we see this beautiful golden sun start to expand now into the loving heart, to the lungs, the physical heart, this area of the chest that expands the loving heart. Breathing in love, holding the breath, and breathing out to clear all that needs to be cleared as this beautiful golden sun of our soul light and inner Christ expands now. And now we bring a focus to the pineal gland. Again, visualizing this beautiful golden sun sphere within the pineal gland. Find the pineal gland by imagining a line crossing from the third eye, the front of the third eye, to the back. From the top of the left ear, moving across to the top of the right ear, and through the fluorescent tube of light, the antakarana, that comes down the crown, down the spine, and out the perineum into the earth star chakra. As these 3 points intersect, this is the place of connection, the pineal gland. And so we have a sense of this beautiful golden sun sphere. As we breathe in, we hold the breath as long as we can, and as we breathe out, the cerebrospinal fluid that moves up and down the spine connects to the pineal and ignites now the beautiful diamond light as this golden sun halo expands around the crown chakra. So breathe in love, hold the breath as long as we can to build this pressure, to activate the pineal. And as we breathe out, this beautiful golden sun sphere expands as this golden halo around the crown. And so we do these breaths 7 times while focusing on the heart chakra, breathing in, holding the breath as long as we can, and then breathing out. And now we have a sense of the threefold flame in this beautiful pink, golden, and diamond light expand from within the loving heart as this golden sun sphere of the inner Christ continues now to expand around the body and energy field. We further have a sense now of this golden sun expanding into this diamond light sphere, 54 feet in diameter around us. Bringing online now as the Merkaba field, all the sacred geometries, fractal geometries, numerologies, and sound and color frequencies. For the next level of our crystalline light body, for the next level of our service work, for the freedom and sovereignty codes, and our ability to deepen into unity and love. As we take a moment to say to ourselves, I love you, giving our full names now. I love you. I love you. We are the open hearts in this golden age of light, manifesting the codes of divinity, our innocence and purity from within, as it ignites from deep, deep within and pours through every subatomic particle. It expands through this beautiful golden sun, our Christed light, to touch the hearts of all humanity, of every man, woman, and child, choosing the path of love. We are in service to Mother Earth and all her life, beacons of light, sacred transfiguring flame, one with Mother, Father, God, one with all life. We deepen now into this connection with Gaia and the pulse and heart of one, this new flow, as we feel and sense this matrix of divine love and unity consciousness activate within and around us, this 144 unity grid of divine love, amplifying our light now as this cosmic heart of divinity. Feeling, sensing our purity, our innocence, and the support of soul brothers, soul sisters, soulmates. As the light of Christ, of crystalline consciousness ignites from within, it connects now into this beautiful ray ashram within Shambhala. As we feel and sense the light of the masters on the inner planes, this beautiful golden ray of one unity consciousness further amplifies our inner Christed light. Where we are invited now energetically through the quantum field to experience the ashram of the cosmic Christ within. Wrapped now in this beautiful threefold flame of power, love, and wisdom. We have a sense initially of this process of purification detoxification, expanding beyond the old, primarily of the clearing of the lower chakras, lack of in any area of our lives, clearing distortions around financial abundance, religious distortions, relationship distortions, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, lesser than, better than consciousness, victim, persecutor consciousness. As we release these false beliefs and judgments, old identities and roles, patterns, programs from the unconsciousness of humanity and from the density within our own bodies. We feel and sense deeper levels of soul embodiment through the photonic light of our beloved I Am Presence and higher selves, merging the timelines of self-mastery through the 111 and 222 light codes, activating deeper levels of our divinity, innocence and purity, deeper levels of self-mastery, Atlantean, ancient Egypt, Lemurian, all merging into this now with our future selves. So subatomic particles spin in this increased light of our inner Christ. Purifying the lower mind, releasing all sense of perceived separation. Deepening now into the connection with soul and star family and friends of the light. As source light. As every subatomic particle illuminates, we feel and sense our own divinity. As we say to ourselves once more, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. We radiate this beautiful light under this sacred earth, this golden array of one unity consciousness through the overlighting of Shambhala, where we find ourselves now in this beautiful temple of Shambhala, joined on the inner planes with all the masters of light as the masters of light. In this field of quantum consciousness, unity and love. We now take this beautiful pink flame of love, igniting it through the hearts of all souls upon this sacred earth, within the cosmic law of free will, stepping up, awakening, choosing to be their soul lights, choosing to experience these rays of divinity, choosing to experience the heart of love. As this occurs, We also find ourselves expanding beyond the old, transcending, releasing and letting go within our own lives all that no longer works for us. Creating now this vortex, the stargate of the loving heart. Feeling and sensing the heart expanding in this toroidal field of light through two vortices that connect into a funnel. First to the front and back of the body, and then vertically, top and bottom. And within this now creating this toroidal field of light. The spin of light that takes these beautiful flames of light, this golden flame of unity, Christ consciousness, this pink flame of love, and now the diamond flame of our purity, innocence, and divinity, the highest aspect of our loving hearts, of our loving light. Activating from within and amplified upon the sacred earth. So we're further wrapped in this beautiful violet flame. The patterns of perfection. Transmuting, transcending. And now feeling and sensing all the subatomic particles spinning in this increased light frequency as we activate the macabre, bringing a focus now to the base chakra. We focus on the Fibonacci 8 to 5, 11 times God's beat to infinity, through the sacral 13 to 8, 22 times God's beat to the infinity, through the solar plexus 21 to 13, 33 times God's beat to the infinity, and lastly through the heart 34 to 21, 44 times God's beat to infinity. We are here, we are home, we are living new earth. Feeling the heart expand and through the third eye now as the ancient memories come online. Feeling and sensing all as one heart and one love and one unified field of light. All is love. Love is all there is. And we are offered now, through our connection to Shambhala and the inner plane masters, to experience this deepening connection that we have with the masters, to experience this wisdom on the inner planes, to experience the ashrams of Shambhala should we so choose, in our dream state or in our awakening states, in our activated macabres, feeling, sensing the star tetrahedrons as they spin around the body to the speed of light and beyond. Good. We ground once more into the crystal heart of Mother Earth, into her pulse, into her rhythm, to receive the codes of the next level of our service in community and unity and love, and to hold this for ourselves as we step up and out into the next level of our service work. As one heart, one love, one unified field of light. Gently come back into our loving hearts, feeling this connection and love with all. Good. All right, beautiful hearts. So thank you so very much for joining, and it's always wonderful to connect, and I wish you just so much love. So from my heart and to yours and to the cosmic heart of all creation, blessings in love. Namaste.